Basic Brewing Radio is sponsored in part by the American Homebrewers Association. The American Homebrewers Association invites you to celebrate the 24th annual Learn to Homebrew Day on Saturday, November 5th. That's this Saturday. Visit homebrewersassociation.org/basicbrewing to download the official recipe for a small batch hoppy amber ale, find a homebrew supply shop, and dust off your homebrewing skills with how-to videos. Plus, you'll get a promo code for $5 off an annual American Homebrewers Association membership when you make a pledge to participate in Learn to Homebrew Day. That's homebrewersassociation.org/basicbrewing to get $5 off when you make the Big Brew Pledge by November 8th, 2022. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Adam Ross of Twin Span Brewing guides Steve Wilkes and me through a tasting of beers fermented under pressure. What are the benefits of fermenting under pressure? Why would you want to do it? Adam will let us know. If you go to basicbrewing.com, you can find archives of our audio and video shows. And if you go to basicbrewingshop.com, you can find our DVDs and our Brewers Logbooks. You can follow me on Twitter, for now, and Instagram at Basic Brewing, and find our show page on Facebook as well. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing. And thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. Financial supporters have already seen the video episode that I'm posting at the end of this week. It's the one where Steve and I taste the American Amber Ale brewed by our friend Matt Giovanisi from Brew Cabin. Matt and I came up with the recipe on this show. Matt mostly. Matt also sent us a video postcard showing how he brewed the beer on his fancy system. We were very impressed at how that beer turned out. Extremely delicious and professional. Hey, send us your disaster stories for our annual disaster show that we have at the end of the year. On the not disaster side of things, I finally started my sizer this past weekend. You know, I've been dragging my feet. I've been talking about it forever. But the thing is, it's so easy to make a cider or a sizer. But, you know, procrastination. It's a disease. Our friends and sponsors at Imperial Organic Yeast sent me a packet of their A40GF Bubbles, which is a gluten-free yeast that's great for fruit-based fermentations. I've also used it on seltzers, I believe. I procrastinated, and, you pay the price. I missed out on the fancy, unfiltered, fairly local ciders that we see around here in the fall. So I got a couple of gallons. That's 7.5 liters of Musselman's 100% apple juice, not from concentrate, and 3 pounds or 1.4 kilograms of honey that I found at the wholesale store that was packaged in Little Rock. They say it's American honey, but it's not clear exactly where it's from. But I tasted it, and it was really good. It was delicious. Anyway, I warmed the first half gallon of the apple juice to about to body temperature and dissolved the honey in it. And the juice by itself had a gravity of 1046. After I added the honey, I tried to take a hydrometer reading, or not a hydrometer reading, but a refractometer reading. But it was off the charts as I expected. So I added another half gallon, took a reading, added another, took a reading, so on, until I added the whole 2 gallons of the apple juice. And the original gravity turned out to be 1083. So I was happy with that. So I added a bit of yeast nutrient and pitched my pouch of Imperial A40GF Bubbles. And this was in the morning before noon. And the airlock was bubbling well before bedtime. It was very happy, very impressed with that. And I'm looking forward to tasting this one. I want to keep it dry, flavor it with some winterish tinctures, and bottle condition it, carbonate it. So I think that'll be fun for the wintertime. Stay tuned on that. You know we love Imperial Organic Yeast. With 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package, my stir plate is dusty because I don't use it anymore for moderate gravity 5-gallon batches or even higher gravity smaller batches like this one, a little over 2 gallons. Ask your local homebrew store for Imperial A40GF and get you a cider or sizer going, and check out all the yeast strains at imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com. Okay, we had a lot of fun with the show. It's a longer one than usual, but we learned a lot as well along the way. Adam sent us 5 different beers fermented under pressure. They were delicious, and it's intriguing to hear why Adam, on his big system, is fermenting some of these styles under pressure. Adam Ross, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Happy to be back, James.
You're up there at Twin Span Brewing, and where are you?
We're in Bettendorf, Iowa, so we're right on the Mississippi River. To zoom out even further, since some people still don't exactly know where that is, we're about a 2.5 hour drive west of Chicago, so right in the middle of the country.
I ask you that every time.
I struggle to remember every time where I am.
Because I don't. At least I got. I knew where you were, the town wise, even though I didn't say it. I did remember the brewery. And sitting at the breakfast nook table here with me is Steve Wilkes.
Hey James. Hey Adam.
Steve's been fishing.
I have.
Now you're going to be drinking beer. Life's pretty good today.
Not bad.
Now, we got 5 beers in front of us, and they have one thing in common. And what is that, Adam?
Are you going to play the sound effect, or do I have to just answer it?
No spoilers.
They're all fermented under pressure.
Okay, and to avoid copyright trouble, we don't own the copyright to that, and we have to. It has to be used in educational or critical purposes. So, Steve, what do you think about that song?
Da, 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 da.
You like it?
Well, it's under pressure.
That's not a critical. I like it. I think it's good.
It's good.
So I can't sing along for copyright reasons, or are we just going to...
No, that's just for...
That's for satirical reasons. Parody is also protected by the...
so if we make up new lyrics...
Yes, parody is always permitted.
Let's save that for after a few more beers.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we could. That could be Vanilla Ice's version, because it doesn't get to the part where he doubles up on that bass line.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So,
fermenting under pressure. So, and I'm not going to use it every time. Fermenting under pressure. We've talked about that briefly in the past. And why would one want to ferment under pressure?
Yeah, I mentioned it one of the last times I was on the show because I had just heard about it. It is something that's been around for quite a while, but seems to have picked up a lot of steam within the last year. And so you would ferment under pressure for a couple reasons. One of the big reasons is that it allows you to ferment warmer without creating a lot of esters or without creating fusel alcohols, those really nasty flavors that you get when fermentations run hot. And then the other side of it is it's kind of the Instapot argument where you're not blowing off a lot of those volatile aromas and flavors out into the air. They're staying inside of the beer. So a lot of value, a lot of advantage in fermenting under pressure, in my opinion.
So in theory, you can brew lagers at higher temperatures?
Yeah, not even in theory. When I first started trying this out, I was doing the 3470 lager yeast strain. That's probably one of the most popular lager yeast strains out there. I was doing that up at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I don't have in Celsius, but it's quite warm, 20-something in Celsius, I believe.
And now one would think, part of brewing lagers or fermenting lagers successfully is that, some lager yeasts give off, sulfur compounds. And if you've ever smelled some lager fermentations, it's stinky stuff, and you're urged to do a diacetyl rest to get rid of butterscotchy components. One would think that brewing under pressure would keep all of the bad stuff in as well as keeping all the good stuff.
Well, you're not entirely, it's not an entirely closed system. So if you're fermenting under pressure, you still want some kind of a pressure relief valve or a spunding valve. And you are burning off those, you're still burning off those off flavors. If anything, you're burning them off a little more aggressively. I mean, you check on the spunding valve at peak fermentation in my brewery, and it is just, it's like a tiny little chainsaw going off, just a little ball bearing in there, setting up all this pressure.
So for those of us who don't know what a spunding valve is,
You've sold some.
Well, I know that, but on behalf of all the customers who came in and said, "What's that?"
and then let me buy it.
Yeah. No, but I'm serious though. What is a spunding valve? What does it do? What is it? Why would one use one?
I love talking about spunding valves. They're such a geeky brewing thing. And they're simple, really. It's just a pressure relief valve that you can adjust. So for whatever reason, most of the spunding valves that I see have a little gauge on them that rates pressure in atmospheres, not PSI, which most of us are used to. But it allows... so are the PRVs on top of my fermenters, my big stainless steel 15-barrel conicals, they trip at 30 PSI. And when they trip, they go back down to like 25, and then they fill back up to 30, and they trip, and they go back down to 25. With the spunding valve, you've got it precisely dialed in. It doesn't need to do that cycle of going up beyond a certain point and then cycling back down below. And also, and this goes for homebrewers as well, you don't want to rely on just your PRV for controlling pressure because PRVs can clog up. They can get dirty over time.
Now, what's a PRV?
Pressure relief valve. So it's a safety measure on top of every tank. It's on top of corny kegs and some homebrew pressurized fermenters. It is not something to be used. This is my PSA here, my public safety announcement. It should not be used to control fermentation. It's there as a means to prevent stainless steel bomb from going off in your house or your brewery. So the spunding valve is really, really important addition to that. It's extra insurance from something really bad happening.
It's a PRV PSA. So that was going to be my next question. Since you're controlling, you're essentially creating a pressure vessel, which if you're familiar with boilers, that it could be, if something it clogs up, something could go horribly wrong. I mean, do you have any concern on those parts?
Oh, absolutely. Understand anything you're going to ferment in under pressure, understand what the pressure is rated to, and make sure you have those redundant safety measures like a PRV and a spunding valve. I have 1-barrel fermenters as well that I use on my pilot system. They're only rated to 15, which is also what the PRVs on those are rated to. So when I have fermented under pressure using a spunding valve on those, and both units are set to 15 psi, which seems kind of silly, but you get that granular level of control, and you don't worry about creating a bomb.
So we've got 5 beers we should start tasting. Where should we start?
I would say we start on the lowest one, which is Liffey Light. That's one you've had before, James, but it is different. Since the last time you had it, it wasn't fermented under pressure.
Now, I've got one, and part of the label part of the writing is worn off, but it says, I think 4.2% maybe?
Yep,
it says Liff, and then 4.2%. So
yeah, that's my handwriting on that one. So
well, it's not the handwriting; it's the ink got worn off somehow in the packaging or something, or in the packaging.
I should point out these aren't commercial cans I sent you. We don't have a canning line yet. We just have a little can seamer, and those cans are for samples that get sent out to different accounts for distribution. So if we do ever decide to go into grocery store shelves, it's not going to be my handwriting on all the cans.
That's a personalized service there.
I've seen worse. And what we've got here is it's a really light colored beer. It's a kind of a golden beer. We're looking through kind of cloudy plastic cups, unfortunately, but it's got a nice pale head on it. Mm-hmm. So talk about the beer.
Yeah, this is it's Liffey Light. So that does imply the existence of a Liffey, which did exist for a while at the brewery, and then I found that our customers really preferred the light version. So it is pretty low alcohol. It is darker than it's our answer to the big industrial macro lagers, but it is noticeably darker in color. I wanted no one to confuse it with one of those beers, sitting in a pint glass. So it does have some a touch of some character malts, mm-hmm. but it's pre-prohibition lager. So a lot of corn, a lot of 6-row, and a little bit of maris otter.
Huh. Yeah, it does have an interesting malt character to it. What yeast did you use? It's a teeny bit fruity on my palate.
That 3470. And yeah, that one gets, that one is at 60 degrees or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So that one's fermented a little bit warmer than the other ones I sent you.
It's good. What do you think?
It's nice. It's finishes a little sweet. It does remind me of just American lagers mm-hmm. In general, but it's a little bit, it has a little more mouthfeel. It's a little bit more viscous, and it's a really pleasant drink. I like it quite a lot. I wondered, the thing it doesn't have that I was at first wanting was a real bitter note. Mm. That I kind of remember from like Blatz. I don't know, drink Blatz beer and Old Falstaff and all that kind of stuff. But as it kind of sat on my palate, I was like, oh no, it's balanced just right. So, So when it poured, I thought, okay, I kind of know what this will be. And I was like, oh, where are those hops? No, it's kind of just right. I don't even know what hops you use, but they're the proper amount.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually personally, I want to thin this out just a hair. Like since this is one of our quote flagships, I don't want to make any drastic changes to it. But I think it could I would prefer it to lean a little more in that bitter direction. And I don't think that's an IBU issue because it's calculated at 36 IBUs.
Wow.
In this beer using Beersmith.
Wow. Huh.
And I think it's more of I mashed a little bit more at like an ale temperature rather than a lager, and I've been doing more lagers since I dialed in this recipe, and I think I want to go a little bit further down. But for hops, I did a really light touch of Eldorado, where if you were doing in the Whirlpool, if you were doing this at home, it's like it'd be just a few pellets dropped into the kettle.
Nice.
And so, can you compare and contrast, say, this beer with and without the fermenting under pressure? Can you actually taste, some sensory differences?
For this beer, I didn't have those two side by side, but and as good as, your flavor taste memories can be, I think there's a difference. I think this is cleaner. It was a little rougher around the edges, but that, like you mentioned, that there's still a little bit of esteriness there that I don't get in the other under pressure beers, and I have to wonder if that isn't just coming from something like the Whirlpool hops, or I don't know, something else.
It's good. It has, for a beer of such low ABV, it's got a very satisfying mouthfeel. It's mm-hmm. It's, I wouldn't say that it's chewy, but it's certainly it's not watery by any stretch of the imagination. It's nice and satisfying, and sitting out on the porch, I'd love to, share a 6-pack mm-hmm. with somebody and solve the world's problems.
It's it does have a nice mouthfeel. It's not thin at all. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a great beer.
Yeah. I I want to attribute a lot of that to the corn, actually. I know some people say corn will thin out a beer, but I actually typically find that it brings this little sweetness and this little perception of body to things. And there's a
I agree with
significant
that.
amount of corn here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cousin of a cream ale for sure. That the cream ale that I've brewed in the past with a pound of corn with 10 pounds of two row. It's really good. It's really good. Where should we go next? What other beer demonstrates the kind of things that you're looking for in brewing under pressure?
I think the amber is the way to go next. So I spent a really long time coming up with a name for this beer, amber lager. I half made a joke because it's a Czech amber style, and I half made a joke online when I brewed it that I named it after my twin sister Amber, and she took it to heart and she was like, "Aw," so I'm like, "Okay, it is named after her."
You're lucky your name wasn't Gertrude.
Well, your brother Whitbeer will be.
It's only his half brother. God, that
I did name a beer Gilbert, and it was the great ale I meant to send you, and I totally forgot. And I think naming a beer Gilbert was a mistake.
Oh,
People just were confused by that, and I mean, it has grapes in it. I don't know. It's just
Gilbert grape.
I probably need to get someone in marketing hired.
There is such a thing as simply. It's a good thing sometimes to name things simply. This is a what would you call it? A deep copper or an amber. It's a penny that's been around for a while.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Smells malty.
Mm-hmm. So far, you're describing my socks.
Well, you have been fishing. They've been in the waders.
That's right.
Oh, that's nice. At the end. There's a really nice, kind of almost Bach-y kind of aftertaste on the malt. You know what I'm saying? There's a caramel. Mm-hmm. There's a nice lingering caramel note on the back end where, as you're drinking it, it's not like a really strong. It's not as strong as say a Bach, but that lingering malty aftertaste really, kind of adds to the depth and complexity of the beer. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not set up for decoction, but I do add a little melanoid in this beer. I did mash thinner on this one than the last beer you had. So I think even though this one's up to 5.5% alcohol, 5.7, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
think it tastes just a little bit thinner, but not, thin.
No, I agree with you. I think it is a little thinner. Not thin. But we're talking about comparing it to the previous beer, right?
Yeah, the Liffey.
Yeah,
light.
That beer definitely had more body on the front end. One of the things I like about this amber is it does finish with a little caramel note, but it's very clean.
Mm-hmm.
So it quenches my palate
Mm-hmm.
really well. So in that respect, even though it's a fairly caramelly beer, it's also very refreshing. Sometimes those things don't go hand in hand.
Yeah. Like I love Bach's, but to me, most of the time a Bach leaves too much of a lingering, that caramely aftertaste, and it's almost like I can't drink more than one. I love it, but it's not like a beer that I want to go back to a second time. I could drink more than one of these without a problem.
Right. This makes me think, when you say Bach, this makes me think of more of those Bachs, quote unquote Bachs, that were huge, like, at least in my area, like 15, 20 years ago, the crafty Bachs, where it's just a lager with coloring added. But this is actually a very complex grain bill.
Yeah, talk about the grain bill.
I don't reveal all the secrets, but there's no Czech malt in this beer, so I kind of hesitate on calling it a Czech amber. But why I call it that, there's a in Iowa City, not too far away, there's this awesome bottle shop. It's an institution, John's Groceries, and he gets all these imports from Europe. Just it's awesome resource. First time I had a Czech amber lager ever. It's one of the BJCP styles, but I found one there, fell in love with it. Set about trying to create something that isn't quite a Bock, isn't quite an amber ale. Where does it fit in between there? So there's quite a mix here of just me experimenting. There's Maris Otter, there's Munich. There is some rye malt, just a little bit of rye.
Interesting.
And a pinch of chocolate malt.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
The style this reminds me of the most, other than amber ale, it reminds me of an Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
It's not quite it's to my palate, it's a little bit sharper than an what I'll call traditional Oktoberfest. So the flavor profile is a little more crisp. It's not quite as round and malty as an Oktoberfest. But having said that, I think it is very reminiscent of that style.
Yeah. You could sneak it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did send you guys Oktoberfest as well. That does fit to that. And I did have a little moment there where I was worried I had two beers on their tap list that were too similar, but people around here love their amber beers, so I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, we're tasting half of the shipment that you sent us, so there'll be a follow-up show at some point in the future. We'll test how well your beers age, Adam.
There you go.
So again, in relation to this style, why would one want to lean toward brewing this under pressure, or is there an advantage to using the Spunding valve in this one?
Yeah, so I'll say half these beers are fermented under pressure in that I actually add pressure to the top of the fermenter when I pitch the yeast. Huh. The other half are just spunded, as in the pressure is set throughout all of fermentation, but I don't add CO2. So why that would be done is, so I brewed this once, super traditionally, I'll say, and then it took about 6 weeks to where I thought it was ready to go on tap. I fermented the second batch under pressure, and at 2 weeks, it wasn't crystal clear pouring out, but it tasted ready. So, I mean, time is the big advantage here. I was able to ferment a little bit warmer without generating any off flavors, and another benefit of being under pressure is it does help clear up the beer faster. It helps push a lot of those solids down to the bottom of the tank.
Huh.
And another trick to this beer, I'm not doing a diacetyl rest. So I don't know if you're picking up on any diacetyl.
I didn't.
Not at all. And I'm pretty sensitive, or at least I think I am, pretty sensitive to the butterscotch, buttery kind of character, and there's none of that in here whatsoever.
No, I don't.
I want some here.
You want some?
I do. So, sidebar, when I was at CBC earlier this year, the Craft Brewers Conference, I actually got to have some beers and hang out with some of the Czech brewers from Czech Budvar and Pilsner Urquell.
Oh, wow.
And Dan Carey from New Glarus was hanging out. And
jeez Louise.
Right? It was
yeah,
a fun time.
You dropped something there. Oh, it's a name.
Oh, yeah. Oops. I'll pick that up. Yeah, it was just a blast. Like, all of a sudden, they're there, and CVC is like homebrew con in that, you're just all like-minded people everywhere, and everyone's always holding on to like a 2-ounce sample of beer. It just so happened that I got the chance to ask these Czech brewers, like, hey, what's the secret? What's the trick there? And I want to say one of the Czech Budvar brewers told me everything you need to know about how to make the perfect Czech amber lager. I just could only understand about 1 out of every 4 words he said. But I did.
That's a Twilight Zone episode.
So he did say the word diacetyl?
It was in there, yeah. And I got a pretty big reaction out of him saying, so compared to German lagers, Czech lagers, and I wasn't trying to be a troll or anything, but I said, Czech lagers, the big difference is they have diacetyl. And he just, whoa, no, we're not. Essentially, he said, we're not trying to add diacetyl, but if it happens, it happens, and they're okay with that. Pilsner Urquell actually does encourage it a little bit. They do like an opposite of a diacetyl rest. They start chilling before fermentation is over.
Whoa. Huh.
Yeah, I've always thought that, and my limited knowledge favorite is I like Star Promen, which we haven't been able to get around here in a long time, but I really like Czech lagers a lot. And Urquell and Star Promen are two of my very favorite beers. I've never had the original Budvar. I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah.
But boy, does it make me want to go to Prague.
And thank goodness, the last time I had, it's been years and years, a Pilsner Urquell, it was in a brown bottle. It was actually in a brown bottle, and it tasted a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Then, Pilsner Urquell, beforehand, they had the green bottles, unless my memory is completely betraying me, but they always were a little skunky to me. But then I had one at this particular pasta place in Fayetteville, and it was in a brown bottle, and it was like, wow, this is so much cleaner.
If you can find it in cans, up in Madison, Wisconsin, I found a place that sells them in cans regularly. I always stock up. They're so much better in cans.
Yeah.
Than bottle.
This time of year is an awesome time to be brewing, and it's extra fun to be brewing with my Warthog electric system from our friends and sponsors, Desiree and Dave from High Gravity in Tulsa. My system is very simple. I'm a simple man. I have simple needs. It's just a half-barrel, 240-volt brew-in-a-bag system with a Warthog EBC 130 controller. That fits my style of brewing. But if you're fancier, if you want to brew with a 2 or 3 vessel system, up to 2 barrels, High Gravity can fix you up. In fact, if you go to highgravitybrew.com, you can find their Build Your Own Brewing System page to specify a system to fit your needs. Say, for example, you've already got pumps or other gear and don't need to worry to order them. No worries there. Choose not to add them. And say you're a lot more handy than I am. Get yourself a Warthog controller and the bits and pieces to create your dream setup yourself. Not handy like me? Get a turnkey system and let Dave build it for you in the back of the shop. And if you use the code EBC75BBE on highgravitybrew.com when you order a Warthog electric system, you can save $75 off your Warthog electric purchase. Tell Santa to take the pain out of propane at family-owned and operated highgravitybrew.com. That's highgravitybrew.com. So where do we go next?
Next beer, to put some space between one amber beer to another, let's go to 1040, which is what I'm actually drinking here in my Willie Becker glass.
What's 1040?
So it is it's another one James had before when it wasn't under pressure, but it is a fest beer technically.
Oh, okay.
I put on the board. I call it a Keller Pils because I don't want people thinking that I'm trying to sell them Oktoberfest in the middle of January.
Gotcha.
But it's almost a smash beer. There's Weirmann Barca Pilsner and then just a touch of Weirmann Barca Munich. And 1040 is the year one of my favorite breweries claims to have opened, which is Weinstefan in the year 1040.
Ah, I thought it was
Wheezy Steven.
I thought the name was a reference to Oscar Blues 1050. I thought it was just like a lighter 1040.
I kind of did. Yeah, that's what I wondered.
But it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not even think of that, and for like 6 months after I released that beer, and I had a little moment where I'm like, well, I hope that's okay. No one's ever sent me a C&D or anything, so it's not intentional.
I can smell and my nose doesn't work as well as it used to, and I'll blame COVID of several months ago, but I get a really interesting malt character on the nose on this one. I haven't tasted it yet.
Yeah, I benched regular Weirmann Munich versus Barca Munich, which is a family farm in Germany, Barca, and I benched it against American Munich. I just made little malt teas, and the Barca is more expensive but totally worth it in my opinion. It just adds an extra malt depth to things.
There's a bit of an. I smelled it on the nose, and I'm tasting it as well, but there's kind of an earthy characteristic.
Like it.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, it's not quite dirt, but it's but it's earthy. I mean, it reminds me of like being out on a farm and like maybe it is dirt, but not in a bad way.
No, I don't get any. I don't think I get any hop character out of the nose of it. So I smell malt. It smells. Yeah, I mean it smells like when I used to reach into the grain bins, to pull out grain for people. It kind of it kind of gives me that aroma hit. It's actually really nice, and that earthiness reminds me of a little bit darker malts.
Yeah. Yeah. And the back end, the front end, when you taste it, it's all about those earthy malts. But then when I swallow, it's pretty fruity.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's from hops. You hadn't talked about the hops, but it is pretty fruity on the back end.
Yeah. With your comments on tasting like a farm, 100%. That's exactly what I get. It's like standing out in the middle of a wheat or barley field. And you get that kind of earthy touch to it. For hops, I was just trying to do some quick math on it, but it's like half an ounce for a 5-gallon homebrew batch. It would be like half an ounce of Liberty at flame out.
Yeah,
it's good. It's really good. When I say fruity, there is a certain. Maybe if I keep sipping this, I'll come with the particular fruit that it's tickling. But are you tasting the fruitiness that I am?
Well, I don't know. I might be, but I'm getting a little bit of that fruitiness that I think Liberty hops has. So I used to do a kit with Liberty and Willamette hops, and I think I did one with just Liberty. I really like Liberty a lot, and that. I can taste that in there a little bit. So, and I think that's what I'm tasting, and my memory taster is reminding me back of the Liberty and.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice. It's good. It's not I don't want to sound like I'm saying it's a defect or it's a detractor, but it's good. It kind of adds some complexity. It's not a one note beer. So again, on this particular beer, why would you want to ferment this under pressure as opposed to not?
Yeah, again, it's faster, cleaner, everything. But inexplicably, at least for my skills, this beer still takes quite a bit longer to lager out. So I release these lagers when they drop clear. I don't add gelatin. I don't have a filtration system or anything. For me. Wow. When I pour off the Zwickel at the little sample port and the beer is clear, I say, okay, it's ready to go. Liffey is very fast, like 4 weeks. Amber is about 4 to 5 weeks. This one is like 8, 9. Just for whatever reason, an all malt beer, this one takes quite a while to drop clear. But I feel like, and this one I actually did get to do a side-by-side because we still had quite a bit of the last batch that wasn't under pressure. On tap, and then this new one was getting ready to be packaged, and I tried them side by side blind, and just night and day difference. This just seemed so much more cleaner, crisper, and actually seemed to hold on to a little bit more of that sulfur snap when you first open the can that the old one didn't.
I'm amazed that these aren't filtered. They're very clear.
Yeah, we get quite a few vegetarians and vegans in our area, and I made a decision early on to not to bother with the silicon filter thing that I can't think of its name, and not to use gelatin because people really wanted vegetarian and vegan friendly beers. So no clarifying aids other than a little bit of the carrageenan Irish moss in the kettle.
So there's no hooves in your beer?
No hooves, no bones. Right? No fish bladders or other things people are scared of.
Boy, if you smell just plain gelatin and water.
Yeah,
it's not good. Well, the original, the Liffey, and then this beer, are interesting to have in your portfolio or on your menu board at the same time, because in a way they scratch the same itch. But my comment is that they're very different beers.
Yeah.
But they still kind of give you that same. I don't want to say that they're the same kind of beer, but they're the beer you have after when you come inside from mowing the lawn.
Yeah. Well, they're drinkable.
But they're really different beers.
To use a word that's overly used, they're very drinkable. Yeah, I mean, none of these beers so far, and there will be one that's about hops, but none of these beers so far are about hops.
Right.
But
there's a good reason for that too. That's the downside to fermenting under pressure.
Okay.
You're done fermenting, your tank is sitting at a significant amount of pressure. So if I do a diacetyl rest, I'll ferment most of the beer at 15 psi, which is 1 atmosphere on most spunding valves. And then I'll crank it up to about 20, 22. And then that allows me to, when I'm ready to cool it down and start carbonating, I don't have to add any extra CO2. So especially right now where CO2 for pro brewers is getting quite expensive, I can underfill my tanks. That's a key piece of it, 10 barrels in a 15-barrel tank, and then capture all that CO2 from pressure fermentation and use that to carbonate the beer. I don't have to ever hit my CO2 tank for carbonating these beers.
Wow.
So this beer is, one of those that I don't know if I want to make that argument that natural carbonation is better tasting or anything, but naturally carbonated lagers.
Certainly less expensive, one would think.
Yeah, no kidding. So I have a couple of comments. One, the naturally carbonated versus keg carbonated, CO2 carbonated. I don't know if I can tell a difference or not, but I think I can, because I generally prefer beer that has been homebrew, that's been bottled and primed naturally, as opposed to beer that's been kegged. Now, the caveat is, if you did a blind tasting, would I? I don't know. But so it might just be the romantic in me. Mm-hmm. But I kind of think that natural carbonation tastes better. There's something about it.
Should we go to the Rye-toberfest?
Yes, we should.
Or the Rye-tober? I'm sorry.
No, it's the Rye-toberfest. I ran out of room on the label.
Okay,
so.
yeah, and my piece of paper has fallen off the table and has flown across the room somehow. So I'm flying blind.
Woo. So tell me about this beer.
It's what I call it is traditional Märzen with just a super non-traditional amount of rye. It's a third of the grain bill is rye.
Wow.
Which is higher than anyone is ever supposed to do.
Does it present any challenges in the mash tun?
Not as much as you would think. But I run off really slow just to keep a really long story short. Just opening a pro brewery doesn't mean you're instantly going to get like 90% efficiency in your mash. I've been, since I opened, been just slowly moving that meter up. And so I run off really slow already. And so when people complain about rye taking 2 hours to run off the mash tun, I'm already there. I'm already taking 2 hours to run off. So not a problem for me. It does look interesting after 2+ hours. It looks like you've mixed in concrete or cement. I forget the correct term there into the mash tun.
You have a bag of cement and then it turns into concrete, I think is the way.
There we go.
It's similar in color to the what was the second beer that we had? The amber.
Yeah.
It's a little darker.
Just a teeny bit. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I'm almost getting a little smoke on the nose, but maybe that's just me with my nasal palate fatigue. I'm smelling.
I might blame COVID on that.
Yeah,
I want Steve to pick out the mystery ingredient.
I'm smelling Steve's. He's smoking Luckies out there on the river.
I used to, not anymore.
Don't kids don't smoke Luckies out.
Don't smoke Luckies. John Wayne did. I don't know what the secret ingredient is. The one thing I do know is that of the beers we've had so far, this is my favorite.
Oh,
I really like this.
That's way good, and all the beers have been good.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as a slur against the other contestants.
No, come on. You think the others suck.
Well, Miss Iowa.
You've been giving me all these hand signs and things. No.
No, I really like this beer a lot. This could be my end of the day beer.
If you still have amber left, which I imagine you do with 16-ounce can, try them side by side. You can really tell the difference rye brings to the mouthfeel, because these are mashed at the same temperature. They're similar in ABV. Definitely a viscosity difference with all that rye. And that's what rye brings. It doesn't bring spice. It doesn't bring...
Right.
People always say spiciness. I don't get that. If anything, I get some earthiness. And then I get that viscosity.
Yeah, Steve's had by 100% rye beers, and they're usually those I hop pretty well, but there's not the quote unquote spice, like you get in a bread, brewed with or made with rye. This is way good. I'm gonna have to think. I'm gonna have to think about what I'm tasting here. Y'all talk. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I kind of agree. I've only had a couple of beers. Oh, I think Victory's Hop Devil, is that what they call it? That I could really go, whoa, that's hot. I mean rye. Right. What beer am I thinking of? It's Victory's Rye something.
They're like a rye IPA.
Yeah, I don't remember. All I remember is when I drank the beer, I went, okay, that's rye. And I've brewed with rye quite a bit myself, but I'm like Adam. I never thought of it as like a spice. It doesn't, but the viscosity and the richness that it brings to the beer is what always attracted me. And I think this does.
Yeah, this is a very sort of comforting beer. It's not gloppy by any stretch of the imagination, but the balance of the there's a nice solid bitterness. It's got an interesting malt character, but then does this have the highest finishing gravity of the beers we've had so far?
That is a great question, and I don't think it does. It might by just a point or two. A lot of that, again, is that the rye just brings so much extra body. It's just this heavy,
it's
almost slickness to it.
Yeah, silky. I would say silky rather than slickness. Slickness to me is like a diacetyl adjacent descriptor. But silky, I think, is a good, it's just really, it goes down easy. It's really, I'm running out of descriptors already.
This is one of the better selling beers we make, and I keep it seasonal. Sales be damned, because people have asked me to make it year-round, and I know some breweries do that, but I have such a German... I have quite a few German ancestors who would probably haunt me if I released a Märzen year-round, so I don't do it.
Steve's got a few of those.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we pretty much like to invade Belgium on the weekends.
Just for the beer.
Just for the beer. But what I was going to say, though, because I know this is a rye Oktoberfest, basically, was that what it really reminded me of, and this will, again, our German ancestors were rolling their graves, but it made me think of a pub. It's like sitting around the Green Dragon, and it's just warm and inviting and easy to drink, and throw some darts and eat some pork pie. And
it's not as sharp as a lot of the Oktoberfests that I've had recently, and maybe that's an American, bastardization of the style, but it's also got a teeny bit of the earthiness of the that previous beer. So what have you talked about other than the rye? Have you talked about the malt bill?
Yeah, so it is all German malt, all from environment. We have an RO system, so my water is even doctored to all my beers. My water I build from scratch, and this one is Munich, so very very low mineral content. I'm using all German hops just for bittering. And the Kolsch yeast actually here. And why Kolsch? Because I know that's not traditional. The first time I brewed this beer up at the brewery, I was running out of time. So I cheated and used ale yeast. And now I'm locked into that forever. So this is the only beer I brew with Kolsch yeast, but it is, but it's fermented cool. It's 59 degrees, which is 14 or 15 degrees Celsius, which is still plenty cool. And then secret ingredient, which I'm glad you weren't able to identify, is I added some black pepper, fresh pressed black pepper. I added a little bit of caraway and a little bit of fenugreek. And there was a show not too long ago you had, James, where someone said, if you can identify the spice, you've used too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And I take that to heart. So this is one of those beers where just a little hint.
Is this the beer I said I smell a little smoke? Yes. I taste at the very back end just a teeny bit of smoke, or at least to my palate. And I wonder if it's those spices peeking through. It's good. It's a good addition to the beer, but
well, that's just you're right. My advice to people was always decide how much spice you need to put in your beer or wine or whatever, and put half that much in, because that's probably how much you need. And so this is a good example of that, and I can see where the beer would be different, though we wouldn't be able to identify why.
Right.
Without those spices. And it's a very nice, complex beer without being in your face, without knocking you down. And it's very satisfying.
And I wonder if it adds to that comforting characteristic that I got out of the beer. You know, it's just like, it's not a savory beer, but maybe there's maybe it scratches that itch just a teeny little bit.
I bet it's the fenugreek. So this is the first year I added fenugreak, and I'm hoping my business partners aren't listening, because I told them I wasn't going to change this beer at all this time. But I added a little bit of fenugreek because I don't know, it just adds that extra little bit of so fenugreek's used a lot of times in artificial maple syrup, and so I wanted to push things in that direction. And I used just the smallest amount into this, 300-gallon batch, and I could tell that I had added it. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I got a little bit of savory. I got a little bit of this, maybe like a maple smoked. Maybe that's where your mind's going.
See? I was going to say, as the beer's opened up, and of course a lot of this I'm sure is suggestion.
Right.
But I'm kind of with you. I'm starting to pick up a little of that mapley. But also a little vegetative, ever so slightly. But again, it's so subtle. You have to really think about it pretty hard.
I haven't had any of my customers come up that keep asking me when this beer is coming back. No one has come up and said, "Hey, I really like what you did with the beer this year," or "What's that new flavor?"
I'm loving that fenugreek in there. I picked that right out.
I'm happy that it's not slapping anyone in the face.
Thanksgiving is right around the corner, so let's talk Ancient Collection from our friends and sponsors Ricky and Kelly at Groenfeld.com. You got time now to order these big, delicious meads delivered to you across the country in most states, and if you use the case builder on Groenfeld.com, you can get 10 to 20% off your order. Right now, you can find all three of the Ancient Collection meads available at once. There's Headgear with cherries, Braggie with black currant and elderflower, Veneer, a classic mead aged on carved ash wood and oak, and for a limited time, bourbon barrel aged Braggie. Of course, you know Groenfeld and Havoc for their more sessionable craft meads and spritzers, but this time of year, when you're around the table with family, you want to serve something extra special. The Ancient Collection at family-owned and operated Groenfeld.com is the ticket. That's family-owned and operated Groenfeld.com, Groennfell. we've poured the final beer. This is the West End.
West End of the Galaxy is the full name.
Oh, okay. I was hoping it wasn't a reference to the Pet Shop Boys.
It is a reference to I needed. There's a long story in there which I won't go into, but I quickly needed to come up with a new name for my West Coast IPA, and there is a significant amount of Galaxy hops in this. So I said, and I live on the west end of town, so I don't know, somewhere in my brain was like West End of the Galaxy, and
Perfect.
So I like Galaxy quite a lot, but I found it hard to get my hands on when I was buying it. And I'm wondering if you have any challenges like that. You know, as a commercial brewer, you'd have to be able to rely on that particular hop if you've chosen one as distinctive as Galaxy.
Yeah, we're not big enough to be invited out to Yakima for hop harvesting or anything, but we can get contracts on some of our hops. And I have Eldorado contracted because I use it in a couple of beers and I love it.
Yeah.
And I have our bittering hop is contracted. If this beer were to get big enough, I'd look to getting Galaxy, but that could be a challenge because, for one thing, the wildfires down in Australia really hurt the Galaxy.
Oh, man.
Where they're actually kind of cheap right now sometimes.
Oh, good.
Because they're smoke tainted.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Just pour Roush beers with them.
Yeah, I think the maybe the latest episode of Brewlosophy, talking about Brewlosophy again. I hope they talk about us.
Well, they do, but you don't want to hear it.
By the way, if you're a Patreon supporter to Brewlosophy, Steve and I will be their live guest in November. Assuming we can both stay well.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell me the date again. I may have a surgery that day.
It's on the calendar. But I think their latest episode as of this recording is about the taint from. Well, nobody wants their taint smoked, but
have you been watching the Discovery Channel lately?
If you've got the hop taint or the smoke taint on the hops, which is it's
I can't get past it. You're killing me over here. I'm going to need a piece of cake.
Which could be a major problem if we were. Susan and Drew and I were vacationing up in Leavenworth, Washington recently, and there was only just a little bit of smoke haze in the valley there, and it was distracting to say the least. But if you had a crop that was dependent on natural conditions, and be interesting.
It's a
to
big
see.
problem right now. A lot of the I haven't seen it show up in homebrew publications and websites, which I still read regularly, but it's showing up in the industry mags that smoke taint is a really big problem because not just Australia, West Coast too, as you mentioned, and everything is going up in price. My grain went up about 30% this year in cost, which is enormous, and hops are actually holding pretty steady. They're starting to creep up, but I feel like it's more of a case of due to these natural disasters rather than inflation. So hops aren't just the hops I use aren't killing me, I guess. Galaxy is one of the ones where I splurge because it is unique enough and I like it enough that I want to include it here.
I spent some time with Rose Schweikart down at Superior Bathhouse Brewing in Hot Springs. And she, off mic, told me that they had been experiencing a drop in efficiency from malts.
Yep. Higher protein this year and lower diastatic power due to a lot of the droughts and conditions. So yeah, it's been sunny all around for brewery owners. But like I said earlier, I don't just get amazing efficiency to begin with. I've actually been going up throughout all of this, but you can't deny that the grain is a little bit different this year.
I'll be darned.
Now we're sipping on this this West End of the Galaxy beer, and it's the first The first beer that has a prominent hop presence, and it's delicious.
It does indeed.
So again, why would you want to do this one, and how did you do this one under pressure?
Yeah, this one I did something called dip hopping, which I don't know why, but makes me giggle.
I don't know why I wouldn't.
Where, just like last
Keeps
year,
that away from your tank.
Last year, what turned me on to fermenting under pressure was I was at this beer fest and serving at my tent, and the tent next to me was another Iowa brewery, and he's like, "Psst, hey, check out what I've been doing with fermenting under pressure." And this was another festival where I knew the brewer at a neighboring tent, and he goes, "Hey, have you ever heard about dip hopping?" No, you're making that up.
Yeah. Later on, we're going to hunt some snipe.
Gonna go cow tipping.
So dip hopping is essentially, I don't know why it needed its own name, but it is, you're not whirlpooling the hops, you're just throwing the hops into the fermenter, and you're running your wort in hot. You either hold it in your fermenter hot for a while, or you, the way I did it with this one, I just slowly started turning up my chiller. So I started running into the fermenter at just about 200 degrees, and then was just slowly increasing. I know my system well enough that I knew how at the end of the runoff I could get down to pitching temperature, and all my hops, all my dry hops, everything were added right there at the same time as yeast pitch, and then I closed up the tank and put the spunding valve on and set it to 15 psi. So I did technically dry hop here, or just entirely dip hopped, however you look at it, and then kept the tank under pressure and fully naturally carbonated the beer.
Now, I wouldn't describe the hop character as bright, but it's very juicy.
Yeah, and it's definitely Galaxy. I mean, I'm not sure that if you just handed me this and said, "What's the hop?" I would have said, "Well, it's Galaxy," but I think I would have identified the universe. That kind of juicy. I always think of it's not double mint, the juicy fruit gum.
Oh yeah,
I always think of that, and it's real bright. Hallertauer Blanc kind of shares some of that.
Yeah,
those characteristics
kind
as well.
Of winey, kind of.
Yeah, but just bright, kind of in your face, kind of like a Klipsch speaker. If you're into stereo, they're in your face. They're right there. They're not subtle.
And used to be made in Arkansas.
Well, they still are.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Klipsch nut. The heritage are still made in Hope.
He's bragging.
Yeah, I am. Well, no. Anyway.
It's really no, but when I say about brightness, it's not, there's not a sharp hop bitterness.
Well, yeah, and some of that could be I filled that can off my tap rail. We don't have an expensive canning line. I basically homebrew filled that can for you, and it is. So I always knew oxygen was a bad thing in finished beer. I didn't truly understand the one impact until I opened my own brewery, and I've done side-by-sides of a beer that was packaged just an hour earlier off my tap line versus when it was poured fresh.
Wow. It
is a significant difference. I mean, that is just it's the biggest battle for pro brewers is that. But I will say Galaxy's not the only player here. There is also Chinook and CTZ and pretty strong presence there. My goal here on this beer was to make it the dankest beer possible. That was after my me going on live TV on our local news, one of our local news programs, and calling half the city dank. I felt like I needed to redeem myself. It's just Illinois. It's legal over there, and it's not in Iowa. And so the news anchor lady asked me to describe, because we were drinking on air, as one does, and she was like, "What's that character I'm getting there?" I'm like, "Well, it's dank." And she's like, "What do you mean, bad?" I'm like, "No, I mean, it smells like Illinois."
She's not a dinker person.
Smells like Illinois.
I don't
love
think
that.
so, no.
Steve missed my joke.
Uh,
I said she's not a dinker person. No, he didn't miss it.
No, I don't miss much.
Well, this is good. I don't know that I would describe it as dank, but it's certainly it's delicious.
It's got some dank going on.
Yeah, it's got a little bit. It's not.
It's not. I don't want to bust your bubble here, Adam. It's not the dankest beer I've ever had.
No, not.
Because I've had
Same
some
here.
beers that were so dank you had boll weevils crawling all over them. I mean, these things were dank.
Yeah, I've got a buddy who owns a brewery across town in Illinois, and it smells like the beer he makes smells like it'd be illegal over across the river.
Well, he's probably using the water out of the Chicago River, just without filtering, just throwing it in there.
Hey, before we move on, I one flavor you didn't mention on this beer was a thiol. Are you picking up any thiols in this beer?
Now, for those of us who don't know what thiol, Steve and
I went to the gym this morning and I tried to lose
So
a
you
little.
might smell a
your
little
thighs
bit
are
of
all
that.
sore.
And I know it's yeah. I was saying that facetiously because I didn't really know what a thiol was either until the CBC. That was the word of the day. That was the Pee Wee's Playhouse special word was thiol, and everyone was chasing it. And that's all I hear about with a lot of pro brewers now is trying to chase this elusive thiol.
Is that like
Well,
umami? Or-
Well, in talking to
No.
Scott
Yeah.
Janish, that's a word that comes up every now and then. But
Yep.
But describe to us what thiols are and what we're supposed to be tasting.
Yeah, I'm not a chemist, although I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So there's that's about the oldest reference I'll be able to make. It is a sulfur mercaptan, so it is.
Well, there you go.
It is something that just a little bit goes a long ways. Like a lot of flavor compounds are in parts per million or parts per billion. These are parts per trillion that we're able to pick up on them. And
that's why
I didn't
missed
know
it.
I didn't know what they were until Yakima Chief had a booth where they had isolated the different hot flavors, and one of them was thiol.
Oh.
And she had this little, like pH test strip, and at arm's length, 3 feet away from my nose, like I could already smell this tropical fruit, this passion fruit, this kind of guava, really nice. As it got closer and closer, it went towards like onions, closer and closer to my nose, onions, garlic, and then it went to really nasty BO from working at the gym, to
Wow.
like hot
Oh,
trash.
Well,
Wow.
Steve is sitting like 3 feet away from me.
Yeah. Jeez.
So he's been on the river.
Well, I've showered since then.
Just a joke.
So there's
So is
brewers
the
are
shower.
tasting this up. This flavor, and I've had a couple that did border on that. Like you went too far, buddy. That level of thiols. But there's now all these yeast strains that are supposed to encourage it, and this one is using Omega yeast, which I use an awful lot because they're right there in Chicago. They use the genetically modified. That is the genetically modified Chico yeast, based on some kind of bacteria they found on human skin that somehow they spliced in Jurassic Park style into the yeast, and it is now producing this tropical fruit flavor. So I don't get a lot up front. Once you start burping this beer, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But there is just an extra little something.
Well,
That's a thiol.
I have sprouted a sixth finger on my right hand, and that's probably the GMO yeast.
Very useful.
No,
Well-
it's a delicious beer. It just may be, and it may be the oxidation, and we had to delay the recording of this podcast, so it's not the freshest as it could have been. So maybe it could be that it's a little bit faded, but it is good. I would order a second pint of it as it
perfectly
is right now. And one day maybe we'll make a road trip up to where are you at?
Up in Bettendorf. We're not too far from Chicago, so I don't know. There's a lot of good breweries around here. Definitely worth your time coming up here.
Well, I would tend to just go to your place and stay nearby.
Yeah, I don't want to go to Chicago.
I used to work in
across the street, so yeah, you can stumble in, and I think there's 16 beers on tap right now.
Wow. Rose has got 18 down at Superior. So, well, Adam, we've gone way over the traditional time, but it's been well worth it. I'm glad that Steve has been able to join us, and I hope that we can schedule another tasting for the other 5 that I've got up in the fridge. This has been wonderful, and I feel like I've learned some stuff about brewing under pressure. Steve, what do you think about that song? You like it?
I like it.
Okay, it's good.
Like it.
That's a critical examination of the song. Not
got a
that
good
we
beat.
don't own the copyright.
It's easy to dance to. I'll give it a 7. You know, this idea of fermenting under pressure strikes me as something that's really valuable to commercial brewers, and I'm wondering if it's valuable to home brewers.
I took an informal poll at CBC. I was all about it at that point, talking to people about under pressure, and no one's doing it. Just that one other brewery in Iowa, or at least they're not admitting to it. A lot of places are carbonating by spunding at the end of fermentation.
Uh-huh.
And I talked to one brewer who I'm good friends with, and he said that at least within his sensory panel, they didn't think it was worth the extra effort. They didn't seem to have a really big impact. For me, I feel like it's been huge, so I'm going to keep doing it. But your mileage may vary.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, everybody has a technique that they like and they swear by, and it'll, hop stand or whirlpool or first word or and generally, if the beer is well made and well cared for, it's really good. But if you've found a technique that that clearly is worth the effort and expensive doing, then do it.
And you sold those spunding valves that you bought to sell.
Oh yeah, I sold. I don't know how many I sold, but there's a bunch of people that bought them. So
there you go.
There you go.
It's another level of kind of brewing geekiness, but maybe it's just what you're looking for.
Well, yeah, and it does speak to your own palate. Mm-hmm. It speaks to your particular palate sensitivity and what you are bringing into the art of brewing. And so we always try to boil it down into all the scientific stuff, with numbers and flow charts and douches and things we don't even want to talk about. But
I don't
know.
What?
I'm just trying to think of something horrible. You can cut that word if you need to. Bleep it.
It's a dessert topping.
It's a dessert. And it's a concrete mix, all in one. But we try to do all that. But at some point, at the end of the day, it's like, well, this is what my palate's sensitive to, and these are the flavors I want to bring forward. And I found a technique that does that.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, and especially if you're brewing on the commercial scale, like Adam, and you find something that works for you. Who cares if it's not caught on yet? He's got to be the leader. And then have all the data to share with everybody else when they finally say, "Hey, I'm interested." So,
well, those Wright brothers. I mean, they were onto something.
Yeah,
everybody's like, "No."
Turns out
we don't need to do that.
Are you comparing me to the guys who created Flight?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but all the buggy makers before them were like, "Well, we don't need that."
Yeah, I was gonna have a license plate one day that says "First in Spunding."
First in Spunding.
All right. You need to go.
Yeah, I need some coffee and
Steve,
cabbages.
Yeah, we need cabbage rolls. All right, Steve. All right. Thank you, sir, and Adam. Thanks so much, and we look forward to the next round.
Yeah, always a blast.
Always what?
A blast.
Oh. I thought you said always blessed. I was like, well, okay.
What am I at Church's Fried Chicken? What's going on here?
I couldn't think up a spunding pun that quickly.
It's because you were under pressure. So thanks again to Adam and Steve. Too much fun. We've got more beers that Adam sent. I've got them in the fridge. So we need to carve out a time soon to get together to taste them as well. It's all I can do, not to sample them ahead of time. In the meantime, if you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voice, and we'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.